On the very first day of the new semester, when everyone was still adjusting to their seats and the sunlight felt too bright for 11th grade, a new girl arrived in the class next door. She was fair-skinned, effortlessly pretty, the kind of presence that turns a quiet hallway into a buzzing hive within minutes. The boys gathered around her like moths to a warm lamp, curious, hopeful, trying too hard. But that afternoon, during break, she did something no one expected. With the confidence of someone who believed the world revolved around her, she walked straight up to my desk, lifted her backpack, and dropped it in front of me with a loud thud. The whole class froze, conversation stopping mid-sentence. Then, with a tone that sounded soft, almost wounded, she looked at me and said, loud enough for the entire room to hear, "George, aren't you going to explain what happened yesterday?" Whispers rose instantly, bouncing from desk to desk. I looked at her, calm, steady, and instead of defending myself, I simply pulled out my phone. "Hello," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "Someone is publicly making false and harassing statements about me. Could you send someone over?" Willow's expression shifted so fast it was almost hard to follow. Flushed, startled, suddenly small. She tugged nervously at the hem of her skirt. "George, don't be like this," she stammered. "I was just joking." The class erupted, half teasing her, half scolding me for not laughing it off. "The goddess is joking. He's too serious. He can't even take a joke." With each excuse offered on her behalf, Willow collected herself. Putting her smile back on like a mask, she reached out a hand. "I'm Willow," she said brightly. "The new transfer. I heard you're kind of a genius. Maybe we could be friends." I didn't take her hand. I simply finished my call, sat down, and returned to the unfinished calculus problem on my desk. The room held in a stunned, breathless silence. When the police arrived 15 minutes later, the story unfolded quickly. Willow was warned gently but firmly. She apologized through tears, insisting she only wanted to get me to talk. The officers reminded her that words await, and that not everyone can bear them the same way. By evening study, the school day should have ended, but it didn't. When I returned to the classroom, my desk looked like a storm had passed through. Books thrown around, insults scribbled across the surface. I asked who did it. Silence. I asked again. More silence. Only one boy, angry and trembling, finally stepped forward, claiming it proudly, as if cruelty was something to brag about. I walked over, calm but unblinking, and stopped inches from him. "Do you know why you're the only one who dared do this?" I asked. He muttered something about others being cowards, but I shook my head. "No, it's because they know better." My fist hit the wall beside him, close enough to startle, but far enough to stay in control. He slid down, fear replacing anger, the room shrinking into quiet. I turned, picked up a marker, and wrote one word across his desk. Slow, deliberate, coward. Later that evening, when the sky dimmed and the campus lights flickered on, I left early, one of the few privileges earned from good grades. But Willow followed, her energy restored, fluttering around me with questions. "Are you skipping study? Where are you going? Are you still mad?" I said nothing. At the bus stop, the old bus pulled in with a hiss. I got on, she followed. Stop after stop passed until I stepped off near the night market, the air warm with the smell of food and chatter. There, behind the worn counter of the stall I rented, I tied on an apron, turned on the stove, and quietly started making fried noodles, my real world, far away from the noise of school. The oil hissed as it hit the hot wok, the kind of sound that fills a night market long before crowds arrive. I cracked an egg, scrambled it apart in a few swift motions, then set it aside before starting again. Fresh oil, onions, heat rising like a wave. Soon the noodles, vegetables, and egg were dancing together in the pan. Each move familiar, practiced. Even with my bandaged hand, nothing slowed me down. This wasn't talent. This was survival. Years of earning every bit of tuition and living expenses with nothing but a walk and long nights. This night market wasn't pretty. It wasn't the type people film for vlogs. It existed because factories nearby emptied out every evening, sending hungry workers into its noisy, dusty aisles. And there, among the clatter of pots and muddy pavement, stood Willow, white skirt, rhinestone hair clip catching the yellow streetlight. She looked like she'd taken a wrong turn into another world. And Andy slurping noodles nudged her. Try his best fried noodles around. Willow hesitated, then stepped forward. "George," she said softly, "I want one." Without looking up, I tapped the QR code with my spoon. 6 yuan. She transferred 100. I still made her the 6 yuan portion. Simple, standard. She poked it with her chopsticks, clearly unimpressed. "George, you didn't even give me an extra egg." 6 yuan noodles don't come with an extra egg, I said. Her expression froze, caught between annoyance and disbelief. By 11, the stall was closed. The night had thinned out, the noise fading. But Willow was still there, sitting by the curb under a flickering street lamp, swatting at mosquitoes. Her pale legs were dotted with bites, the price of waiting here. I tossed her a small bottle. Stops the itching. She looked up at me with big, tired eyes. "It's so late. Can you walk me home?" I paused. "Where do you live?" The address she named was an upscale community. Coincidentally, it was on my way. After washing my hands, I slung on my backpack and started walking. She hurried after me, brushing dust from her skirt. When we reached the entrance of her gated complex, she stopped and turned to me. "George, thank you for walking me home." The moonlight softened her features, her voice gentle, almost hopeful. "Does this mean we're friends now?" The night breeze carried away the heat of the day. She looked at me with an earnestness that almost didn't belong to this world. I let a small smile slip. "Maybe." Her eyes lit up instantly. Deep inside, a voice whispered, one she thought no one else could hear. "System, do you hear that? I did it. I made the male lead my friend on day 1. Healing-type male leads are easy. You just give them a little warmth, and they'll follow you on their own. But it seems George doesn't like sunshine girls. I'll have to adjust my strategy." I nodded lightly. "See you tomorrow, Willow." Her cheeks flushed pink. "See you tomorrow, George." On the walk back, her friend request popped up on my phone. I stared at it for a moment, then accepted and added a note. When I reached home, the security door creaked open to a world far removed from moonlit sidewalks and hopeful smiles. A tiny room, barely big enough for a bed. On it lay Patricia, paralyzed, fragile, utterly dependent. The air was still heavy despite the open window. I walked over gently. "Mom," I said softly, "why are you always so unwilling to stay clean?" Her eyes filled with fear, the only part of her body that could still move. Her voice came out in broken sounds, lost and desperate. I sighed. "Oh, right. Your system abandoned you. I can't hear your thoughts anymore." I lifted her carefully, changed the bedding, fed her porridge, and settled her back down. She'd been starving. She swallowed the food quickly, clinging to the spoon with her eyes. The single bulb overhead swayed, casting long shadows across the room. "Life like this must be miserable, right, Mom?" My voice was calm. No control. No dignity. Depending on others for everything. I leaned back slightly. "But don't worry. It'll be over soon." I smiled gently. "Today, I met a new heroine, and I have a feeling your role in this story is coming to its end." Her eyes widened, fear blooming in them, raw and unmistakable. Gone was the kindness she used to pretend to have, the superiority she once wore like perfume. All that remained was panic. After a long, quiet moment, I pulled out a folding cot and laid down to sleep. 3 days later, Patricia passed away. I took a week off school for the funeral. There were no relatives, just a few neighbors, a quiet room, and incense trailing into the air. Willow came too. Her eyes were red as she hugged me gently. "George, stay strong. If your aunt were still here, she wouldn't want you this sad." She had never met Patricia, yet mourned as if she had lost someone dear. I recognized the performance for what it was. I gave a small nod. Fake. Patricia had spent years resenting me, blaming me for a life she never got to finish. So after her funeral, when I scattered her ashes on a quiet patch of roadside grass, It felt less like a ceremony and more like closing a chapter that had dragged on too long. When I pushed open the door to the tiny apartment, the air was different, lighter, calmer. For the first time in years, the room wasn't suffocating under the heaviness of illness. I stood by the open window, breathing in the cool air as though tasting relief for the first time. Maybe because she was gone, that night I dreamed of something I hadn't dared to in a long time. My real parents. Patricia wasn't my biological mother. My real mother was someone the system had chosen, a warm, sunlit presence destined to heal a broken man. That man was my father, someone scarred since childhood, carrying battles no one had taught him how to fight. And somehow she succeeded. She loved him, married him, had me. For a moment, we were a family, imperfect, but together. When the system asked if she wanted to leave this world and return to her original one, she paused, then refused. She told it. I was alone before. Here, with Luis and George, I finally feel like I belong. I didn't understand her words back then. I was only 6. Curious. I went to my father and repeated what I had overheard. Everything fell apart. His fear twisted into anger, anger into suspicion. He demanded to know whether she had ever truly loved him or if he'd simply been a mission. The shouting, the broken trust, the storm he never learned to control. It destroyed the fragile peace they'd built. In the days that followed, my mother's smile faded, her energy dimmed. And still, through all that, the system whispered to her again, "Are you leaving now?" I still remember lying on her lap, listening to her voice dip mid-sentence. Her face looked so pale, like a flower wilting long before its time. "Mom," I said, small and earnest, "maybe you should go." Tears slid down her cheeks as she shook her head. "No." Her voice trembled. "George, I won't leave you with him." The system gave a final farewell, saying it had already found a new male lead in need of saving. It left us behind, just like that, but my mother still believed she could protect me. A quiet fire lit in her eyes as she whispered, "George, go get your father's keys. We'll leave together." I did as she asked, but escape was never simple, not in our house. My father found out. Fear, chaos, doors slamming, everything blurred together. When the noise finally died down, the police arrived. They told me I was now alone. And just like that, I became a story the world moved past. An orphan taken in by a seemingly kind neighbor named Patricia. But the moment I looked at her, I heard it, a voice I recognized too well. "System, I finally managed to adopt the male lead. I'll take care of him. And then I'll complete my mission." Her gentle kindness suddenly made sense. Her timing, her coincidence. Everything. I wasn't just a child who lost his family. I was a plot line, a role, a target. And when Patricia couldn't finish her part, the system moved on, choosing Willow, dressing her in bright smiles and soft colors, recreating pieces of my mother to spark the story they wanted. But stories crafted by others always tasted the same to me. Sweet on the outside, rotten underneath. Back at school, I returned to find warm breakfast tucked into my desk every morning. Willow's doing, of course. "The goddess treats you well," the boy behind me grumbled. I didn't bother looking back. "If I were you, I'd focus on improving my grades first." He quieted immediately. Willow, meanwhile, became a fixture at my night market stall. She'd sit beneath the dim streetlight, finishing her homework while eating the same 6 yuan fried noodles. Sometimes she added an egg, sometimes she didn't. And every night, after I closed up, I'd find her still there, waiting, persistent, as if this was all part of a story she already knew the ending to. She kept coming to me every day, insisting on walking me home. A whole month passed like that. Quiet evenings, small routines. Then one morning at school, I suddenly heard her yelling at something only she could hear. The so-called system in her mind. "What do you mean my redemption value for George hasn't gone up? I brought him breakfast for a month. I'm covered in mosquito bites. How has he not moved at all?" The system's voice was cold, mechanical. "Host, I told you before. You need stronger methods." She pushed back. "Like what?" "Find someone to Smash his stall. Hire a few school thugs to bully him. Then you show up at the last second and rescue him. Willow froze, offended, almost embarrassed. Don't you think that's shameless? But the system didn't care. I have no human emotions. Statistically, this method works best. I just scoffed and stopped listening. That night, as always, she showed up at my noodle stand right on time. No thugs, no drama, just her usual order of fried noodles and her quiet company until closing. When the last customer left, she gathered her courage, stepped toward me, and asked, "George, can I hire you to tutor me every night? That way you won't have to work so hard here." I looked up at her. "Are you pitying me?" "No," she said softly. "I'm worried about you." Her voice steadied as she went on. "You're talented. You're brilliant. You shouldn't spend your nights working yourself to exhaustion at a food stall." I rinsed the pots without looking up. Tutoring you isn't exactly easier. Her face flushed instantly. My tone shifted. "But, fine. I'll do it." She just stared at me, stunned. Moonlight traced the gentle curve of her cheeks, making her look almost unreal, glowing, hopeful. She wasn't perfect, but compared to Patricia, she wasn't cruel either. So I gave her a chance. I tutored her for an entire semester. Her grades shot up. Her father handed me a thick red envelope. Kindness wrapped in a warning that our relationship was strictly professional. I took it without hesitation. Money meant freedom. Money meant I could finally buy the materials I needed for the experiments I'd dreamed of for years. Then, halfway through senior year, the school announced its guaranteed admission slot. It didn't go to me. It went to another girl, smart, but nowhere near my level. Willow immediately stood up for me. "What? Why not him? He's the top student by miles." She was ready to storm the school board. "Don't," I told her. "They didn't pick me because I'm their best bet to win this year's top scorer on the national exam. That was our deal from day one." She inhaled sharply. "Being top scorer isn't easy. I know you're brilliant, but can you really do it?" I asked her, "What do you think?" Her system had already told her my entire character setting. The orphan genius supporting himself while caring for a paralyzed foster mother. She hesitated. "If I didn't know you, I'd believe it without question. But now that I've seen the real you, I can't help worrying." Her system chimed in. Healing value +1. She froze. After nearly 2 years of chasing me, it was the first time the number had ever moved. I lowered my eyes. "Thank you, Willow, for seeing me, not as some scripted character, but as a person." After the exam results came out, and I ranked first in the province, the school threw a small celebration for me, since I had no parents to attend. Later that night, Willow asked me to meet her at the beach. There were no stars, no moon, just a dark sea swallowing the horizon, and Willow standing there, glowing in an evening gown sprinkled with crystals like a portable galaxy. Her hair curled, tied with black ribbon, strands dancing beside her cheeks. She confessed. I turned her down. "Why?" she asked, smiling through the hurt. "Willow," I said quietly, "do you think an ant could ever fall in love with a person watching it from above?" She blinked, confused. "What does that even mean?" Instead of explaining, I asked, "Do you know why your nickname on my phone is number 2? Her face paled. "Why?" "Because number 1 is my foster mother, Patricia." Willow had already forgotten her. Just a paralyzed woman who appeared occasionally, nothing more than a background prop in her eyes. But my next words made her blood run cold. Before you arrived, she was also bound to the system. She was supposed to be the heroine of this world. She was meant to be the kind of mother who raises a child through hardship, the kind whose love softens even the sharpest edges, the kind who heals you simply by staying. But she was gone. Willow's voice dropped to a whisper. She looked at George, really looked at him, and his eyes were darker than the sea behind them. A shiver ran through her, and she stepped back. Her words trembled. How did she die?" I kept my voice calm, almost gentle. "She died after you appeared. The system chose you and abandoned her." Willow pressed forward, unable to stop, Then what about the paralysis? Why did that happen? It wasn't sudden, I explained softly. She was getting older, probably had high blood pressure. And one day, while working the stall, she took the wrong pill, the one that raises blood pressure instead of lowering it. It caused a cerebral hemorrhage. I paused. When they finally stabilized her, she couldn't move anymore. Silence fell between us. Then Willow's voice cracked as she asked, "Did you do it?" I didn't answer. I crouched down instead, letting cold seawater slip between my fingers, the chill running all the way up my arm. She asked again, smaller, more fragile than before, "George, are you going to kill me?" I stood up slowly, wiping my wet hands on my clothes. My voice lost all warmth. "I know you applied to university in City A. Change it, Willow. Stay away from me. All of you, just stay away from me." The wind caught my words, but the bitterness stayed. I never needed anyone to save me. I said, "I won't become my father, and I won't recreate another mother all over again, no matter how many times life falls apart. The only person who can pull me out is me." I turned to leave. Behind me, Willow's voice broke open. "George, everything I did for you was real. Didn't any of it move you? What did I do wrong?" Her sobs echoed across the shore. "I just want to go home." "So what did I do wrong?" I stopped and looked back, exhaustion written across my face. "I'm just an ant, Willow. An ant that could never fall in love with the person watching it from above. And tell me, do you really think I need saving by this kind of love?" Willow finally gave up. She changed her university choice and left for another city. As for me, I entered the physics department at City A University, went straight through to a PhD, and stayed in the lab as a researcher after graduating. Years passed. I reached out to Willow again only when I was 26, right after my team published an important paper overseas. I flew home, slept for a few hours, and stepped out to run errands. But when I opened my front door, a tiny girl stood there, staring up at me. A pale yellow dress, a small baseball cap, and a bright, innocent daddy. Before the absurdity could hit me, I heard a voice I knew too well. "Wah, adorable daughter heals the tragic male lead and reunites her parents." System, am I pulling off a child act? I'm actually 35. My expression darkened. I crouched down, expression flat. "Who is your mother?" She blinked. "Willow, Daddy, how can you forget Mommy?" Then added cheerfully, "Oh, wait, not yet. This is the part where Daddy and Mommy aren't together." Hands clasped behind her back. She said very seriously, "I traveled back in a time machine to fix Daddy and Mommy's marriage." After settling this impossible child inside, I went to my car and messaged Willow. She replied almost instantly. Then she called. I picked up. 2 silent seconds passed. Then her voice came through, hoarse. "George." My system disappeared. "Will I die like Patricia?" I didn't answer. I just lit a cigarette and let the bitterness scrape along my tongue. When it was burned down to the filter, I exhaled once and asked quietly, "Willow, do you still want to go home?" Only her breathing filled the line. Then, finally, clear and certain, every minute, every second since I arrived there, all I wanted was to go home. Her honesty surprised me. I looked at myself in the rear-view mirror, a tired man with something like a smile pulling at the corner of his lips. I rolled down the window, flicked the cigarette away. "All right, Willow," I said, "you'll get what you wish for." Just as suddenly as she had arrived in that world, Willow woke up one day back in her original one. Her mind was 26, but her body was 17 again. Still dazed, she walked downstairs. The housekeeper was dusting, her father sipping tea, her mother chatting on the sofa with a face mask on. Everything was exactly the same, yet nothing felt the same at all. When her mother turned and saw her, her whole expression changed. "Willow, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Who upset you?" Only then did Willow realize tears were streaming down her face. She didn't even remember when she started crying. "Mom!" she sobbed as her mother wrapped her in a warm embrace. "I had such a terrible, terrible nightmare." "What nightmare?" Willow paused. The words felt far away. I don't remember. That's all right, her mother whispered. Dreams are always the opposite of real life. She called for the housekeeper to buy pomelo leaves, to chase away whatever bad luck lingered. And just like that, Willow's life returned to its familiar track. But something strange lingered, even though she had been gone for 10 years. Coming back felt natural, as if none of it had happened, as if that entire world had been nothing more than a long, heavy dream. Until one afternoon, while she was practicing piano, a voice echoed softly in her mind. Host, don't be afraid. Willow sat at the piano, her fingers hovering just above the keys, as if even touching them might break the fragile air around her. I'm here to say goodbye, she whispered. She didn't look up. Instead, she asked a question that had lived in her chest for years. What really happened that day? The system answered, its voice steady, almost gentle. When you failed the conquest, I moved on. Host number 3 was chosen next. But George, he was too smart for me. He built a device that ripped me out of number 3 and forced me into his own mind. Willow's breath caught. The system continued. And the moment I entered him, his healing mission completed instantly. I asked him what reward he wanted. Endless wealth, a new world, anything. A pause, almost respectful, almost sad. You already know this. Half his blood comes from conquerors. If he wanted, he could have gone to live in his mother's world. Willow's hands trembled, but he refused. The system's voice softened further. He chose to give that chance to you. That's the only reason you were able to return. Willow blinked hard, her voice barely a breath. So he really healed himself long before I ever knew. A single tear slipped from her lashes and struck a piano key with a soft, lonely note. In her mind, she was suddenly back on that dark beach, the salt wind, the moonless sky, the boy who looked at her with cold indifference and said he didn't need anyone to save him. Maybe that was always the truth. Maybe in the end, the only person who can save someone is themselves. The system spoke again. Yes, but saying this breaks protocol. So I'm about to be destroyed. Willow gave a small, hollow laugh. You're scared? No. The reply was almost peaceful. I don't have an emotion module. Destruction just means going from ordered data back to unordered data. A beat, then something like a sigh. Still, I felt I should say goodbye to you. Goodbye, Willow. Willow froze. In all these years, the system had never said her name. 10 years in that other world. Only one person ever spoke her name in that cool, quiet voice. She heard him again now. Fragments of memories drifting through the room like soft echoes. $6 fried noodles. No extra egg. See you tomorrow, Willow. Willow, don't cause trouble for me. Thank you. Willow. Willow, you'll get what you wish for. She laughed and cried at the same time, her shoulders shaking, looking like someone caught between joy and heartbreak, because now she understood. It wasn't the system speaking. It was George. He had written this farewell into the system's code. All the words he never got to say, and timed it to reach her in the system's final moments. A goodbye delivered from another world, straight into her heart. And so, in the end, the two of them finally shared the farewell they never got.